And we decide on which strains to put in the vaccine by looking at how they react with antibodies that have been produced in experimental animals, but now also looking at the genetic changes that are going on in the virus. And we can make these maps. There's an antigenic map, which is the map of the antibody binding of the virus on the left-hand side. It doesn't necessarily go along a straight line, and a genetic map. So by tracking it in two different ways, and also by looking at the antibody responses that people have made to last year's vaccine and comparing that with the most recently isolated virus strains, we can decide which viruses should be going into our vaccine to give us the best cover for the new season's viruses that are coming up. Are they safe? Well, current vaccines certainly cause some injection site reactions, a bit of soreness, a bit of redness, and occasionally they give you some short-term systemic reactions, a little bit of fever, a little bit of headache. We haven't totally got rid of those. Some people are more susceptible than others. Here is what we call a crossover placebo study, where half the people were given vaccine, half of them were given a harmless, just neutral salt solution, and then you come back a month later and give them the opposite of what they had originally, so that you get rid of any bias from the individuals, and you monitor the reactions that they had. And when we have a look at all the local reactions, 17.5% of people with vaccine, 7.3% of people with placebo. That is a significant difference, and it's mainly just soreness to touch, really. That's the difference. If we look at what we call systemic reactions, any indication of fever, headache, or feeling off colour, the difference is very, very small and actually doesn't make significant levels. So this is a good indication that the vaccines are, in fact, very safe and non-reactive. Can you get flu from the vaccine? Absolutely not. People say they've had flu from the vaccine. They can't possibly get flu from the vaccine because the virus has been killed and it's been broken into little pieces. But what about more serious reactions? There are the potential for anaphylactic reactions, hyperallergic reactions, for example. There's been a concern about a condition known as Guillain-Barré syndrome, heart attacks, neurological problems. All of those things people have said could occur as a result of influenza vaccine. And if you have a look at a very large database in America and have a look at the reports, now I've highlighted here, this is reports where people, doctors, report any suspected adverse event to a vaccine or to medications as a whole, goes into a large database, and then they're evaluated. And what this one shows is that about 3 reports of potentially serious reactions occurring per million vaccinations. When you look hard at those, it's essentially impossible to show that they are associated with the vaccine. These are things that are going along in the background in the population anyway. And as I've often said to people, within a period of time, maybe 2 weeks or whatever, having a flu vaccine, I'm sure there are about 3 or 4 people in Australia who've fallen over and broken a leg, but we can't blame that on the vaccine. And these other things really don't relate to the vaccine. There was a case where Guillain-Barré syndrome, 1 year in America in a big study or in a big vaccination program, did appear to be at a higher incidence than in an unvaccinated population. That's been studied in great detail ever since, and it may be about 0.7 people per million vaccinated just might suffer Guillain-Barré as a result of the vaccination. What recent studies have shown in France and other places is, in fact, you've got a much greater chance of contracting Guillain-Barré by contracting influenza. And so the vaccine does, in fact, appear to be protective against Guillain-Barré syndrome rather than causing an excess of Guillain-Barré syndrome. And the same thing goes for heart attacks. By preventing people from becoming infected with influenza, you prevent them from actually having a myocardial infarction. So the vaccine is probably protective against most of these things. How effective are they? Well, the answer really depends on what you look at, how it's assessed. the population you're assessing it in, whether you're looking at illness, hospitalisation, death or anything else. And I've just put up a few figures here of the more firm data that we have from good trials showing close on 90% protection in children, between 70 and 90% complete protection in healthy adults, and even in high-risk people where the reaction, the responses are less, certainly very high levels of protection. And this is the best we can do. There's a single trial in adults over the age of 65, shows about 58% protection against infection. If people do become infected, despite having the vaccine, the probability is that, in fact, they're going to have a less severe infection. What about workplace vaccination? Is it cost effective? Well, we have a look at the published literature, the medical literature, and a recent review through the National Institutes of Health in America concluded that a workplace vaccination program appears to be relatively inexpensive, potentially cost-saving for a wide variety of employers in diverse industries. And here is one study looking at, a very good study, looking at giving airline employees vaccine or a placebo. The P there is the placebo, the V is the vaccine, and then looking over a period of time at how many people became ill and were absent due to influenza. And there was quite a marked difference between the two. So this is clearly working in this particular case. And there have been few good studies of this nature for us to be absolutely certain about, but there have been lots of observational studies which certainly do indicate that there are cost savings to be made on many occasions by vaccinating. Here is a summary from an American journal of savings between $15 and $50 per employee, and the important factor of it providing a degree of employee satisfaction as well. What determines cost effectiveness? Well, how much you pay for the vaccination, severity of the season, which can vary, as I said, the nature of your employees, their health and age, and that varies dramatically across industries, how many of them will actually avail themselves from a program, and whether they're likely to be exposed, whether your workplace situation is where employees are close together, whether they interact with the public, whether they're transiting to work on public transport, which is a really good place for spreading influenza, and other work-related travel overseas, not on aircraft so much, but in baggage halls and boarding lounges where people are crammed together a little bit like cattle and spread disease amongst themselves, and you're meeting people from all around the world. And the absence affects whether the employees are costed, whether it's costly to replace them, or whether you have opportunity costs. But we mustn't forget presenteeism, compromised performances, errors that cost, maybe just accounting errors, safety breaches, a crane driver, somebody working on an oil rig could cause terrible injuries by making a mistake because of them being ill with influenza. So I'll finish at that point, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have or any confusion that I might have caused to this point.
Alan, I think you have turned confusion into clarity for everybody who's attended. I think we're all stunned into a state of silence because there actually were no questions, because I think every time in our minds we were coming up with a question, you actually addressed it with the answer, which was really one of the main reasons that I wanted to invite you to come and talk at this forum, basically with your research and your experience. I think you provide that clarity, which is fantastic. So,
what I should say, Sue, is that if you do receive subsequently any questions or feedback from people, then if you pass that on to me, I'll be happy to provide you with an answer to send on to your clients.
No, definitely. Thank you. The registration where people came through, that links back to my email address, and then they're more and more welcome to to take it from there. You're getting lots of compliments, by the way, about awesome presentation. Thank you. Very insightful. Thank you for that clarity. Someone is also saying I'm going back to my boss straight away. So look, thank you very much, Alan. Let's keep in touch. And everybody, this is the last in the Lunch and Learn series for 2012. And I look forward to seeing you all next year. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Bye.